Antimatter. When you hear that word, you probably think of starships, epic explosions, the cutting edge of physics. But what if I told you there's a completely different way to think about it? The source we're looking at today redefines antimatter not as something physical, but as a reality you can only, and I mean only, experience with your consciousness.
So, here's the plan for today. We're going to start by looking at two very different definitions of antimatter. Then, we'll dive into what this world of consciousness is actually made of and how you might, well, access it. From there, we'll tackle the mind-bending idea of imagination becoming real, and finally, how our collective thoughts can literally build worlds.
All right, first things first, we've got to understand that the word antimatter is doing double duty here. On one side, you have the scientific definition you might already know, and on the other, we have this deeply metaphysical view from our source material. Let's break them down. Okay, so let's start with the familiar stuff, the science. In physics, antimatter is made of antiparticles. It's real stuff. It has mass, it has energy. If it touches regular matter, it annihilates in a massive burst of energy. And super importantly, we can actually detect it with our instruments. This is the antimatter of CERN and cosmic rays. And now, get ready for a total 180. The author of our source gives a completely different definition. For them, antimatter is anything that has zero mass, zero weight, and is totally invisible to any scientific instrument you could possibly invent. So how do you see it? How do you experience it? Only through your own consciousness. It's a complete departure from physics. So, if this antimatter isn't made of physical particles, what in the world is it made of? That question takes us right into the idea of a reality built not from atoms, but from pure consciousness. And here's where it gets really interesting. The building blocks of this antimatter world aren't quarks or electrons. No, they're things like consciousness itself, life structures, the concepts of spirit, mind, and soul. But it goes even more abstract. We're talking about laws and principles, pure information, names, and even wisdom. According to this view, these are the fundamental elements of this other reality. Now, all of this immediately brings up a huge question, right? It's the big one that science always asks. Can consciousness even exist without a physical body? Isn't our awareness just a product of the neurons firing in our brain? The author's answer is a hard yes. The argument goes like this. Sure, consciousness uses a physical body to express itself, but it doesn't depend on that body to exist. The source brings up things like near-death experiences as possible examples of consciousness doing its own thing, completely separate from the physical form. Okay, so if this non-physical world is out there, the next question is pretty obvious. How do you get there? It's not like you can book a flight, right? So how do you access this other side?
And this is where the two worldviews just could not be more different. Science relies on external stuff, instruments, data, logic, trying to be objective. The author's method, it's all internal. It starts with closing your eyes, clearing your mind of all the physical world's noise, and then entering what's described as a kind of tunnel, where you observe directly with your consciousness. We're talking about something more like deep meditation or a lucid dream.
And get this, it's not just one single path. The source talks about two different kinds of perception, two tunnels you can travel. First, there's the time tunnel. This supposedly gives you a view of your own life, your past or your future, kind of a long ways look at your existence. Then there's the space tunnel, which is a sideways view, letting you perceive other antimatter worlds that are coexisting with ours right now. Okay, you might want to buckle up for this next part, because this is where things get really mind-bending. We're about to dive into the idea that the line between what's real and what's just an illusion might not be what we think it is. The source puts it in this really poetic, almost paradoxical way. The real is not real. The illusory is not illusory. Now that sounds like a riddle, but this one little phrase is absolutely central to this entire way of thinking. So how in the world does that work? Well, the author boils it down to one simple, powerful principle. If you can feel it, it is real. The thinking is, hey, the emotions you feel in a dream, that heart-pounding fear, or that incredible joy, your consciousness feels those things for real. So if the feeling is real, then the world that created that feeling must have its own kind of reality too.
Let's make this concrete. Think about the last time you had a vivid dream. The fear was real, right? Or the happiness you feel when you have a great daydream. According to this view, those feelings make the dream world real on some level. The author even extends this to shared myths, like the World's Journey to the West. Basically, any world you can truly imagine and feel is, in this sense, a real antimatter place.
All right, this all leads us to our final and maybe most powerful idea. If one person's imagination can create a reality, what happens when a whole bunch of people start imagining this same thing? We're talking about going from a personal daydream to a co-created, shared reality. So the source makes this incredible claim. A single person, just one, can create an entire world with their imagination. A whole universe, just for you, powered by nothing more than your thoughts. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. Any world created by just one mind is fragile. It's described as being like a bubble. It's beautiful, it's real while it's there, but the second you stop thinking about it, the second your focus drifts, pop, it's gone.
Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. When many minds are in sync, thinking about the same thing, what the author calls frequency resonance, the worlds they create are way more stable. Think about huge shared concepts like heaven or hell. The idea here is that because millions of people are pouring their conscious energy into those concepts, they become more solid, more persistent, and in a very real sense, more real.
This chart kind of helps visualize that idea about energy and how long things stick around. Think about foam on a wave. It has very little energy, so it exists for just a moment. A stone has a lot more energy locked into its structure, so it lasts way longer. But in this view, consciousness itself is the highest form of energy, giving it the potential for the longest, most persistent existence of all, even if it's not something you can physically hold.
So, after this whole journey into a completely different way of looking at reality, we're left with one final, pretty heavy question. A question that this whole philosophy seems to put right back on us. If our consciousness, our thoughts, and our shared beliefs really do create worlds, what world are you building?